Assalamu alaikum. And today I have brother Hamzah. Before we get to his intro, so what I really wanted to share with you guys, we want to create a new series, right? I don't know if I told you, like over the last year or so, we started this group, a movement called Deenpreneurs. We've been working and helping with them on their journey. So we want to create a new series. We don't know even the name yet. So we want to create a series and share their journeys and who they are, what they do, and most importantly, why they do. And today, I bring one of the brothers we've been working almost a year, Brother Hamzah. Assalamu alaikum, and welcome to whatever this is. We don't even know what's going to be named, but you're the first experiment. That's what we know.
Alhamdulillah. Wa alaikum salam and jazakallah khair for having me. Such a pleasure to be with you, Brother Maruf.
So let's start with this, right? So people will get to know what we're talking about. Tell us who you are and what you do.
Yeah, so mashallah, big question. My name is Hamzah Henshaw, and alhamdulillah, I help Muslim teenagers get into their dream colleges. That's my offer, and that's sort of what I do. But in terms of why I do that's deeply ingrained in my story. So I myself became Muslim when I was 15 years old, and obviously that was, you know, pivotal moment in my life that changed the trajectory of my life and so on. I think I've devoted a lot of my life to helping other teenagers or helping teenagers have a similarly transformative experience because I think there's something sort of magical about that age, where kids up until that point are sort of parroting the ideas of their parents, and then a little bit after they think they've figured it all out, but there's this short little window where they're trying to like form their own worldview. And for me, having Islam find me or me find Islam during that time was so important. And alhamdulillah, the other part of my story was always academics. Academics was a huge priority of my parents. My mother was a head of the English department at one of the best private schools in the country. And my dad was a lawyer. He went to Harvard and St. Mark's and so on, and he put a lot of pressure on me to do the same. So St. Mark's is actually the boarding school where I went, following in my father's footsteps, and that's where I actually became Muslim. And then I also followed in his footsteps in going to Harvard and so on. And eventually, after a brief career in Islamic finance, I transitioned towards education. I've been in that field for more than 20 years. But the thing I'm sort of most proud of is really helping hundreds of Muslim teenagers through navigate the college admissions process and get into the colleges of their dreams. So I decided to start my own firm. I was doing that within a school setting, and I wanted to start my own consultancy to sort of bring those skills to the ummah as a whole so we can uplift those Muslim youth, inshallah.
That's beautiful. I was reading I think one of your newsletters or maybe Substack. You mentioned your story, how you became a Muslim. There's this brother, I forgot his name, that he
Nabil.
was Nabil, right?
Hmm.
Yeah, mashallah. He was so different and he was doing stuff. And it's like, why is this guy different? Because there's curiosity. Sometimes, may Allah reward him, you know?
I mean,
So that's a beautiful story. So what you're saying is you have this big shoes to fill in from the beginning. You know, your dad is
hmm
doing this, mom is doing that. You know, you have to aim high.
hmm
And then in your teenage years, you said you end up, with this new kind of worldview, right? Islam,
hmm
and Alhamdulillah, you accepted that. That is a I think that is kind of a big thing. But then you also mentioned you did worked at the, I think you mentioned Islamic school, right? That you've been doing this, what that student counselor
Right.
for many many
Right,
years.
right. So right. So I my very first career was in Islamic finance, sort of Islamic investing, and I
Mhm.
went into that because essentially I always tell people I wanted my biryani and eat it too. So I wanted to, be do something close to the deen for the sake of the deen, but also where I'd be, compensated well financially. But very quickly I realized that just wasn't for me. I'm very glad that these firms exist. At that time, they really didn't in the States. I think my vision was a good one. It would have worked, but it just didn't happen to suit me. Whereas education really did. And so right after, the first half of my career, I was working in like top flight private schools in the States and internationally. And then I transitioned to an Islamic school. And even though we're the only full-time K through 12 Islamic school in New England, and shoestring budget, very limited resources, and yet year after year we were sending kids off to, Harvard and MIT and Brown and all the best universities in the country. And I realized we'd sort of figured out a formula, and it was just so rewarding to help Muslim kids both get in touch with their Islamic identity, but also not have to compromise on, their academic and professional outcomes. And that's really become a huge priority for me, that I think so many people, it's like deen or dunya, right? And really, I think we almost have a responsibility, to excel and teach our children how to excel in both deen and dunya.
Yes.
And that's what I've been blessed to do. And now I'm trying to, like I said, bring it to the ummah as a whole.
That's beautiful. So, well, what I really want to focus on is that transition. Like,
Mhm.
if I remember, about the first time we met, was that a year ago, I guess, right? We got introduced through our common friend Patrick.
Mhm.
He's a,
Mhm.
mashallah, he's a great brother. And then at that time, I don't know where you were, but probably you were in transition period, right? You were doing the student council
Mhm.
thing for many years, maybe 10, 15 years. But then you wanted to do some, I mean, I wouldn't say something else, but you want to do what you were doing on your own. Let's put it this way, right?
Mhm.
You have the school thing, but now you want to, it's like a job, 9 to 8, 9 to 5 job, but then there's like a new type of journey. Like,
Mhm.
what caused that? I mean, why would you bother? Like, just keep on doing what you're doing.
Right.
What caused it?
Right. So I think, within the school setting, I wasn't just the guidance counselor. I was also a high school English teacher. In fact, that was probably the biggest part of my job, because that's a full-time thing. And I was really working with the students. I used to teach sixth grade English, ninth and 10th grade English. I was their guidance counselor in 11th and 12th grade. At small schools, you wear many hats. And so I was having incredibly deep impact, but on a very narrow part of the ummah. It was only on people who happened to go to this particular school and
Hmm.
and so on, only in New England, only in Massachusetts, that sort of thing. And as I looked around, I realized that there are a lot of other Islamic schools that don't really do as good a job with this. But then, also there are a lot of Muslims, out there whose parents are, immigrants. They're successful professionals, but they didn't go to college themselves here.
Hmm.
And so they're not able to give them the same level of advice. And so I really wanted to take this sort of deep but narrow impact and spread it far and wide, right? Like, I think I spent some time in India and Pakistan, and
Oh, mashallah, I didn't know that. Good for
yeah,
you.
and so I came to Islam through the efforts of the Tablighi Jamaat.
Oh, mashallah.
And so right after I finished at Harvard, I actually went there for 4 months, and I was in India and Pakistan. And the interesting thing was, in India, like the markaz, the center, is like this vertical building. It's this tall building, and really, like, what I got from my experience in India was like direct connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Like, it was all about speaking to the heart and just really infusing you with iman and this and that. Whereas in Pakistan, mashallah, the thing I learned from them was just this just incredible vigor and desire to spread the deen, right? To
Hmm.
go out to the four corners of the world and so on and so on. So one was sort of a vertical integration, and then there was the horizontal one. And I realized that for real success for Islam and for the ummah, we really need both those things. We need that vertical, which I was getting in the school, the deep depth, but we need the horizontal. We need to help raise the profile and give the opportunities for all Muslims. So
Interesting. I did not know. That's a good one. I had not no idea that you went there. That's great. So as you're saying that now, that's about a year ago. Did this start about a year ago when we first met, or was it before
Yeah,
that?
so
That's
we
inspiration.
right. I actually remember I spent the summers up in Maine, and I was sitting down by the shore with Patrick. He was visiting, and I guess he gotten an email from you about Deenpreneurs, and
Hmm.
something about the halal ad audience, and then you were trying to help, instead of just bigger companies, you wanted to help sort of
Hmm.
starting out entrepreneurs, and so he showed it to me, and I was like, oh, this sounds really interesting. So we booked a meeting at that time, and then we met at ISNA last September, I guess, in
That's right.
person,
That's
and
right.
alhamdulillah.
That's right. So the thing about Patrick is that I know him even before that. So we work with the Imam Ghazali Institute. We work with him, and I think
Hmm.
probably he got one of the emails. And the reason actually I sent that email only to subscribers, to the not new people, is that so about 4 or 5 months ago, before last summer, I launched
Hmm.
this book, right? 7 Steps of Success. And some people read it, and some people started getting back to me and say, we like the book, but we want to do something more. I just know, what do you mean you want to do something more? Just read the book and implement it, right? But now, as you are going through, we'll get into point, inshallah, to your audience as well. So there are different types of people, and they want to have different interactions, right? Some people just want to read your Substack email, they're happy, right? Alhamdulillah, they're moving with their life. And some people, they want to take some of your, if you have a book or a course, they want to take it. And some people, they want even further. Okay, I love this guy so much, Hamzah. I want him to help me reach my goal, be my coach, or whatever that is. Like for example, we'll discuss later on, like find your Qiblah, the initiative you are doing right now, right? So there were the people who were telling me, because we do work with people, but we work with like a agency to agent, like a client relationship, not like this kind of relationship, right? Where you lead the people. So I just didn't know what people they wanted. They keep saying we want this. I said, okay, let's start meeting. I don't know. I just said, look, I don't have much time. I have only once per week I can show up and we can help you out. And that's what I said. Look, that's what I'm doing. If you are one of those people, and you are one of the, I think the first 10 or 20, I don't remember, first 10. That's how we start the journey. So tell us, as I said, the whole thing, the reason we are doing this, want to do more, is that we do have a podcast where we share community leaders, they're doing amazing things. But the whole purpose of this is not just those people tell their stories, which is great, mashallah, but also telling the stories of people like you who have been on the job site, but has beautiful goal, but then they're taking this goal and part of this journey and actually implementing it. So I think instead of me talking about the program, I want to understand from your point of view, like what made you decide to join this, and how has your journey has been so far? You've been almost a year. Tell us about that. And then I understand that there's so many things you're doing, but I would like to get your opinion on that front as well. Then we can go into like, what is the offer, what is it you are doing, and
Right.
how is it evolving, if you
Hmm.
don't mind.
Yeah. Yeah, so another story, I don't know if I've told you this one before. So last year, before that time I opened that email and everything, I was in class, and I had this amazing student. She's actually she's a like entrepreneur of her own. She has a podcast. She sells some products. She has like 50,000 Instagram followers, mashallah. Um and so she forwarded me a message. She said, I just saw this really cool book, and it was 7 Steps to Success,
Oh,
and to get her your book essentially. She's like, have you ever seen this before? And I was like, no, I never have. It must, maybe it had just come out or something. So I was familiar with you, from that time. And I think I started following you on LinkedIn and things like that. So yeah. When it all came about, I think, the way I first learned about you and what caught my attention was this concept of marketing to Muslims, right? It was an area that you developed a lot of expertise, and then specifically on the sort of paid advertising side, and the way you sort of developed a Muslim audience, by aggregating the audiences of all your different clients, and that was appealing to me, because I know it is quite difficult to target and paid advertising. I had no background in that, that sort of thing, so that was the initial thing that brought me there. But then I think I really love masterminds. I'm a part of maybe 5 or 6 different masterminds. I love being in communities and learning both from the teachers, but also from your classmates and their
Yes.
experiences and so on. I think when I first started as an entrepreneur, it was incredibly lonely. So I remember in like July, like a year ago, it just like going to work but not really knowing what I was doing, and then also just feeling like there's no one to talk to, there's no one
Mm.
to bounce ideas off of. I have to figure this all out on my own. And so joining that and a few of the other ones that I did, gave me that sense of community, gave me people to bounce ideas off of. And it's just inspiring seeing what everyone's working on, and we all have different strengths and so on. So yeah, it's been a great journey. I've really grown from essentially, when I was still teaching, like I just sort of started this on the side. I didn't have like a company name or anything like that, but I was doing a little bit of private consulting, essay coaching, that sort of thing on the side. But really, it was July 1st last year when I sort of went full time with it, incorporated all that sort of stuff. And so essentially we went from zero revenue at that time, and now we're well over 6 figures, and hopefully going forward. So alhamdulillah, it's been
May
a
Allah
wild
bless your
run.
work. Yeah.
And I think I've learned so much in the past year that I can't imagine what the next year holds,
Sure.
as I get better and understand things. And yeah,
I mean,
alhamdulillah.
while you're at the topic, like I know that you're one of those people. I know that, mashallah, you are really eager to learn, and then you show up every time, and you go and do. And while you are doing it, so why don't you mention maybe other masterminds you might find useful? Maybe there are. I don't want to just promote what we do, but
Hmm.
also there are other some good ones, right? You can complement what we do.
Right.
If you don't mind, just mention them briefly so people can also
Yeah.
check them out.
So the very first one I did, which unfortunately you probably would no longer really be able to do, was called Niche Hero with Ustad Muhammad
Yeah.
Sharif, Allah yarhamu.
Was it-
That was really somewhat similar about Muslim entrepreneurs. I did that 2 years ago, 3 years ago, way before, but I think it planted the seeds.
Yes.
Then
You did with him. He
in
was alive at that point, right?
Yeah, he was, yes,
I
he
did
taught
this
it
like 10
live.
years ago.
Yeah.
I did 10
It was
years ago.
right. It was like right, small cohort and so on. Really, really great stuff. And it got the wheels spinning. Then I took Peter Gould's class, The Heart of Design,
That's another good one.
which was in sort of January, and that's when I really started honing in my ideas about this,
Yeah.
what I was trying to do with the college coaching. Then the next one was Tie Your Camel, run by Mohammed Faris of Productive Muslim. So that's again a program. I joined his sort of flagship first cohort of that, and it's similar to what you're trying to do, but even maybe a little bit more structured and so on. And it's really about helping Muslim entrepreneurs who want to get into the sort of coaching consulting space,
Yes.
launch
Yeah, that's very
online
specific coaching
businesses, and
consulting. Yeah.
right. And the Productive Muslim Company was sort of one of the models that I had in mind, when I was launching this. So being able to learn directly from them, and here, he essentially shows you his whole playbook and encourages you, and then you're with other people who have similar goals and so on. Um, then I'm a part of a writing mastermind. It doesn't have the best name, not as it's not a Muslim group. It's called Badassery Academy,
Okay.
which I think they could work on the name. But anyway, it's run by this Australian blogger named Tim Denning, who has you know billions of impressions on his online writing, and writing is sort of like my superpower. It always has been. And so I used to see his articles everywhere. I go on Medium, and like he'd publish 8 articles a week. I was like, who is this guy? And they were all good. And so I took a sort of 30-day challenge with him, and then he had sort of a mastermind on the back end of that. So I joined that, and that's been fantastic. They also have, actually, right after Deenpreneurs, that's when I have that class. So it's a weekly thing, and just
Nice.
learned a lot about writing and so on. And then the most recent one is called High Impact Coaching, and that's really about the nitty gritty of the business side of running a business. And that, in terms of revenue and business savvy and sense, that's the one that really, I think, threw the lighter fluid on what I was doing.
Yeah, so those ones probably I don't know. But I remember that as you mentioned, the Nishiro by Muhammad Sharif. He was my teacher, my mentor, mashallah. He was actually, unfortunately, he passed away. His sudden death was the catalyst to start writing the book. I had the idea about the book, but
Mm,
when we think about the death, we know that by theory. But until
mhm,
it's someone happens to someone close to you, you begin to take it seriously. I said, you know what?
mhm,
I mean, I mean, if you ask me, don't you know that you may go away? Yeah, you may go anyway. But somehow in your mind, you have the trick like, you know what? I mean, we die like 70 years old. Who told you that? Right? No.
mm,
But then it was this like, I have to do this. Alhamdulillah. So his death was unfortunate. And then also start writing the book. I really, yeah, I think there's a sister who is doing his courses, but I really suggest if you guys want, you can go and check it out. Nishiro. There's another one,
mhm.
good one called The Millionaire Who Went to Jannah. That's another good
Ooh,
one.
I know
Yeah,
that one.
you guys go and check it out. His stuff. He's and then the other two people you mentioned, I know them quite well. Peter Gould is a good friend. His course is really good on design thinking. Like I design thinking and with based on the Islamic values. I really encourage everybody to go and check it out. He actually launched his book as well. Check out his book as well. It's a
Mhm.
beautiful book. And Muhammad
Muhammad-
Faris, another good friend, mashallah, as you said. I learned so much from him. He also launched his that's not only this but also a book as well. I think called Baraka
mhm.
Effect, the second book. The first one
Yep,
is
the
good as
second
well.
book.
The second one is pretty. I like the second one. I told him that it's much more story based. The first one is much
Hmm.
like advice. The second one is much
Hmm.
more story. He told me that yeah, he
Right.
he learned that. So that's good. That's on the masterminds and the how. So the one thing I want to understand from your like growth, like it's a journey. Now the reason whole we are doing is that is like a backstory, not like the shiny things, but
Right.
also the difficult ones, the challenging ones. Tell us the how does it look like to create what you are doing? Not everybody is doing the same, but we all. So I mean, one of the things I really appreciate about people like you, entrepreneurs, are that something has to burn so badly in your heart, in your
Mhm.
belly, whatever it is. You go out of the norm, right? Otherwise, you were getting you had a salary, 9 to 5 job. You don't have to bother. Why bother,
Mhm.
right? But you do that, you go on this journey, you do mistakes, you fall down, you have to get up and keep on going. So tell us about some of those challenges you had or you are having right now and how you are solving them. Like, if you don't mind.
Yeah. I think one of them, like I said, was that sort of loneliness of entrepreneurship
Mhm.
that I started out with. That was really difficult. I think one of the other ways I solved that was trying to get my wife more involved in
Okay.
things. She's obviously we've been married for more than 20 years, and she's been with me every step of the way, and she's always helped me with my students, with grading, with everything. And so having being able to bounce ideas off of her was great. So sometimes when I'm planning out a new class, it's great to have another person to bounce ideas off of. Um, I think, yeah, some of the difficulties, I think the first class we built was sort of a college essay uh, master class for the early application. Actually, we're about to do the second iteration of that. And I didn't know how to go about doing something like that, right? So like when you're first starting, you're like, okay, I know what I want to do, but how do I get to the right people? How do I build my audience and so on? And one of the things that Ustad Muhammad Sharif alayhi rahmah, said, like, and the main thing I got from Nishira was go build an email list, right?
Mhm.
Build an email list. He said once you have a 5,000 person email list, then you're never going to go hungry. And he said, and you're going to be able to start having the impact. But until that time, you're not. So from day one, I was really focused on that. But at this time last year, I had 200 people on the email list or something like that. Alhamdulillah, we just hit 5,000 a week or two ago. So alhamdulillah. But
So hopefully you will never go hungry.
yeah, alhamdulillah, inshallah. Allah will never let us go hungry. Either way, whether the business succeeds or doesn't succeed. But yeah, so just getting people there for the first events and things. And I think one of the keys for me has been webinars. That's something that seems to really work within the Muslim world. And the other thing I would say is WhatsApp. WhatsApp has been a godsend. Like they say, you have to go to where your customers live. For better or worse, Muslims live on WhatsApp. Like my American friends, almost they don't even have WhatsApp. And when I tell them I'm a part of like 70 different groups on WhatsApp, and when I want to, promote something, I can just, send it out. That's been great. I've had some. I tried to have one of my sort of students run a class at one point, and that didn't work quite as well because I think, and that helped me realize that sort of I'm the face of the business and like I need to be there front and center. I think it's something that can work in the future, but I probably tried that a little too early.
Mhm.
I think another challenge of this world is sort of the feast and famine of like launches. When you have a launch, there's quite a lot of revenue that comes in, but then while you're actually delivering the course, it's the revenue starts to dry up. So figuring out that sort of regularly recurring revenue,
We call it
that's
MRR. That's the key word.
right. Right. So
MRR.
that's a bit of a tough nut to crack, that I'm working on, and I'm getting there, but I don't think I've 100% solved that yet. There are different things. I think building a team. I was really all alone for the first 6 months or so, and slowly I've started. I have a VA now, and I have a operations guy in Pakistan who's wonderful. And I recently yeah, I started working more formally with Patrick actually, as
Oh,
a
mashallah.
copywriter and digital marketer. So, alhamdulillah.
Mashallah. That's good. That's good. So, tell us about one of your recent campaigns, and we're gonna drill it down the how it's working on. And I just to tell people, right? Because when you started like a startup, or let's say in this case, like this movement, right? You do have like one of the things working for you was, I'm just thinking going back to the book again, right? One of the things we're working for you was you actually loved what you do. Do you agree? Because you were doing
Hmm.
it for the last 15 years anyway. And number two was you were good at it. Do we agree? You were
Inshallah.
good at it. I mean, alhamdulillah, you were good at it.
The results suggest that I was good at it.
Yeah, alhamdulillah, that's good at it. But I think the other two parts, like, but did the world needed it? I think the world did need this stuff. You agree.
Hmm.
Otherwise, you would be out of job. But I think that the challenging part for you was, correct me if I'm wrong, was the one like, how do you get paid? Right?
Hmm.
How do you make this knowledge now, which you think you love, you're good at, turn into something impactful, something meaningful? So
Hmm.
if you remember, what I want you to just tell us is that tell us the journey when you started. Like I know it's a year, but not much, but alhamdulillah. But I've seen the quite really beautiful growth over that time. Not only the what you offer, but also pricing as well, right? Tell us where you
Hmm.
started, what your idea was, and where you are right now. What is your offer? Did it change or it's staying the same? What you learned? Because this is the thing where people think that what they have to just get the right idea. If you just
Hmm.
have the right thing, they would launch it. But in reality, it doesn't work like that. You have to have an idea, go to the market, listen to the market. It's really that you have the right idea. You have to go back to the drawing board, update it,
Hmm.
and go back again. It's like an iteration, right? But in your case, how was it? Did you hit the right away?
Right. No,
Or
so I think when I started, my focus was on college, right? Like and that's still the headline, right? Our company name is Five Before College, and it is about helping people get into college. But as I started meeting with more and more clients, I mean, I've had probably 500 Zoom calls over the last year with real Muslim kids and adults sharing their actual problems. So then you get a sense of where, it's like 97% of students in the States go to schools with acceptance rates of 50% or higher. So the vast majority of people are not going to these elite schools. Now, the reason most college counselors exist is because everyone wants to be in that 3%. They all want to go off to, an Ivy League school or Stanford or, some school like that. And alhamdulillah, I have background and experience in helping people get there. But what I realized was a lot of people were coming to me not because they wanted their kids to go off to a great college, but because they felt like their kids were rudderless. They didn't have any real direction in life. They didn't really, they may have been disconnected from the dean, or they just didn't have any ambition, or they wanted to do something with their life, but they had no idea where to start. And so that got the wheels spinning, because that's actually the stuff that I'm much more interested in. You know, the college process, the actual nuts and bolts of applying to college, is obviously important, but it's not, you can't sink your teeth into it quite as much, right? And you know, when I started the company, I called it 5 Before College, because I was trying to recreate that special sauce that I had at my school, right? Where I was working with students for 5 years leading up to them actually applying for college,
It's
right?
a
I
different
taught
approach
them,
than what you're doing now.
right. Well, no, so this is what I'm doing now. So the 5
Okay.
Before College, I think, mashallah, that name came from Allah, right? Because what it means is that I really want to start working with students way back in 8th or 9th grade, right? Because I don't want to just come in, swoop in at
The
the end
last
like
year,
most college coaches, and just help them with their college application, right? Because then at that point you have no ability to shape what happened their freshman year, their sophomore year. You have no ability to change decisions that they made earlier, give them that guidance, and so on. And so really working with them from that young age is, you know, critical to the brand and so on. And so that is something I've really come into. Like actually 80% of my clients are 10th grade or younger, so they're in the first half of high school.
That's nice.
And obviously from a business perspective, the other thing this does is it gives you a much longer revenue stream. So instead of people just coming in for 1 year at the end and getting help, inshallah, if you're doing a good job, they stay with you for, you know, 4 or 5 years, and then send their siblings and so on. And so, you know, but more importantly than the revenue, you're having that deep impact. You're a part of kids' life, you know, for a long time. Because that was the thing, when you do the horizontal spread, the danger is that it's a very shallow, right? Like most coaches don't have that long, you know. So I really want to establish long-term relationships with students where they can get high-level advice from me and from my network of people that I know, other Muslim students, successful Muslim professionals who can come and just share with them, you know, again and again. And so that's sort of where we're going in the future, as you know, providing that sort of platform, you know, to really help the youth and so on. Sorry, I think I might.
No, it's okay. So I mean, to
Yeah.
summarize, what you're saying is that,
Yeah.
like, the more you talk to them, the deeper you understand the problem. Right? Instead of just trying to fix them the last year, inshallah, hopefully you want to have longer period, not just get them like the most prestigious college. Maybe it's not right for you. What about instead of everybody trying to become a doctor, a lawyer, or whatever, what if you actually look inward, right? Like you figure out what you want and go for that. And then that's a beautiful goal, right? That is a beautiful goal.
And so that leads pretty directly into this find your Qiblah idea, right? So after getting all this feedback, then like you said, okay, so how do you get paid and so on, right? And you know, the first thing is finding your offer, right? So you know, that's obviously the most critically important thing. So it seemed to me that people, some of the people were worried about their kids' deen, some of the people were worried about their kids' dunya, and my passion is to help them get both, right? And so I wanted to design a program, you know, that helps them get both. So I came up with this concept, this idea called Find Your Qiblah, right? Which, so the basics of it are, you know, that first and foremost, you need to find your akhirah qibla. Like you need to establish an akhirah orientation, the complete yaqeen that exactly that we are all returning to Allah, and true successes in pleasing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, going to Jannat al-Firdaus, and nothing else really matters. If we achieve that goal, then we won, and if we don't achieve that goal, it doesn't matter what we have of this world and so on. So trying to move those thoughts from the tongue to the heart is like my why, right? For teenagers especially, right? So that's one thing. But then also, like you said, you know, I think people are so influenced by their parents and society that they think there are only two or three possible careers. So they can be a doctor, of course, an engineer, now maybe a lawyer, computer comp sci is okay, right? But they don't really have a sense of like just how broad, you know, the opportunities are, and you know, how many different ways you can make your living. And sometimes it's like you're taking a round peg and putting it into the square hole, right? Like some kids, mashallah, they burn. When I meet a kid who really wants to be a doctor, or say they want to be a doctor, I sort of have like a script that I go through with them. And, you know, in some cases, it's completely genuine. This is their burning passion, and that's what you need to become a
Yes.
doctor, because it's an incredibly long road. But for a lot of others, they think that's the only way you make money in this world. And I'm like, well, you're not really going to make any real money until you're about 35 years old.
Yeah.
You know, and actually the electrician or the plumber who's like making bank at like 20 years old, like, you know, I mean, obviously different kids are different, but that's the thing. Like there, I think, you know, every kid is different, so helping them find their dunyawi qibla, like developing a vision for what they're trying to do, helping them find their why, and then building a life around it, and building a, you know, a career around it, that so they're doing things that are interesting to them. One of the things I have the kids do is actually interview their parents, and try to get advice from their parents or grandparents and so on. And actually, one of the interesting things that comes up is that a lot of the parents are like, I wish I'd had this class, because, you know, when I look at my life, you know, I actually don't think I'm doing what I was really born to do, right? That like I just sort of fell into this without a lot of forethought, and so on. And, you know, and I don't actually love what I do. And you know, as much as I did like working at the school, there were significant drawbacks to it. Like it wasn't, I didn't really find my calling until I started doing what I'm doing now, because I wasn't really using every aspect of me. You know, I really like being my own boss. I really like having, you know, control of my own vision, and so on. So those are the two things. It's like find your qibla of the akhirah, find your qibla of the dunya. But then the tangible outcome of the Find Your Qibla program is to help students put in place a passion project. I call it a Saturday morning project, something that they're so excited to work on that they're willing to give up some sleep and wake up early on a Saturday morning to get going on it. And you know, so this could be something like, you know, starting a blog of their own, or a YouTube channel, or a small business of their own, or an NGO, or, you know, one of my students is trying to create a prophetic vegetable garden, right? So she wants to buy a plot of land in Detroit. You can actually get like a city block of land for less than, for like $3,000 or $4,000, and she wants to turn it into a community garden where she grows vegetables that were mentioned in the Quran, and so on. So you can imagine, like, when you're applying to college, and like this is like no one else has done that before, and the way you can talk about that story and so on, it just stands out. Like and you know, the admissions officer reads that and they're like, oh my gosh, this is so fascinating. And that's the idea, that kids these days, especially for the elite admissions, they need some sort of X factor, right? And so I'm essentially, all this entrepreneurship stuff and masterminds that I'm a part of, I want to give a sort of teenage version of that to my students and help them nurture a project. It's not always starting a business, but essentially it's like Tiger Camel, it's
You
Deenpreneurs,
find
it's
find your thing, find your why. It's all they don't,
right, finding your why,
figure out
and
who you are.
but then turning it into an
Thing.
actual concrete project, right?
Yes.
Something that's Googleable, that something
Yes.
that you can find on the internet, that you can talk about, you can touch, you can smell, right? So it's not just ideas. Like kids and adults for that matter, we have all these big ideas, but no one ever does anything, right? And the world rewards doers. So, you know, and school is so caught up in grades and this
Knowledge,
and that,
knowledge
kids
dumping,
don't take
right?
chances. Kids don't take chances, right? Failure is the single worst thing that can happen to you in school, right? And so as a result, kids are afraid to ever take any chances. And as an entrepreneur, as an adult who's trying to like change things, you need to take chances. You need to sometimes swing for the fences, and you're going to strike out some of the time. And I always tell kids, life is about collecting failures. It's about, you know, you know, you have to hear a lot of no's before you hear yes. That was one of the things I learned with sales, that like every time someone says no at the end, you should say alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah, because, you know, I'm exactly, I'm getting closer, you know.
That's a beautiful mindset.
And yeah, alhamdulillah.
So speaking of the, we have like 10 minutes left, I guess. We have to jump to another call. So speaking of mindset, I want to direct it a little bit. So from your experience being in a year, remember when you started, right? When the zero revenue, then you begin to make 1K, 2K, 10K, 20K, whatever. So in each step, like I want you to tell people, like, because like I can tell them, but it's different you tell them, like because you are on the
Mhm.
journey. Like tell your experience. How do you find it when you hit a specific point in revenue? Because each business is different. For some people it's 1K, some people it's 10K. Do you see the difference when you go like it's like I try to tell people it's like going to fitness, right? You want to get fit. Like even the
Mhm.
wealth is a mind of mindset because they think like, yeah, there's no questions. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives, but you have to act on it. You're not just sitting in
Mhm.
and it's gonna lap into your fit. It's a different mindset. So from your experience, even if it's just short, tell us how is it before you start, when you start making, let's say, some amount of the revenue, but when you are a different. Do you see the change, like a new way of thinking, a new way how you do business, like, or is it the
No,
same?
yeah, no, 100%. I think you know, obviously when you're first getting starting, you're really just bootstrapping and so on. It's it's challenging and so on. And it's also like, it's a lot of mindset stuff, right? At that point, you're like, is this gonna work? Do I have what it takes? And so on. And so definitely, revenue and sales are good for your confidence, and it makes you feel like the proof of concept is there. But definitely, I sort of made the decision, that this first year I would try to reinvest my earnings back into the company. That I didn't want to just, that I really was trying to build something much bigger than just like a small business. Inshallah, I have visions
Inshallah.
to build a seven-figure business, multi-seven-figure business, and so I know to get there, it's going to take some time. So pretty much every time I hit a revenue milestone, I figured out some way to reinvest it, either by hiring people or taking on some of these higher end coaching programs, or other things like that. And every time I've done that, I've seen the ROI pretty quickly, right? Because that's what it takes. Everyone always says you got to spend money to make money. But something like the Facebook ads, when I started those with you, like just this $20 a day ad brings like 20 leads or so a day, like around $1 an ad consistently since like January into my audience, and many of those people later become clients. So but so pretty much, recognizing Allah is the Razik, and like the rizq is in his hands, and like having that confidence that he'll, like, what I'm doing, inshallah, and what we're all doing is for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And I think before I get on a sales call, or before I do anything, I try my best to like make wudu, make dua, like, ya Allah, if this is good for this student, if this is good for this family, if this will lead to a good outcome in deen and dunya, ya Allah, please make it easy. And if there's any harm in this, it's like the istikhara dua, like, please save them from any fitna that I would create for them, and so on. And I think that sort of mentality around business, and just recognizing that everything's in the hands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and but still putting in our effort to make the best products, have the ihsan about what we do, that's been really critical.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. So that is it for our first session. Inshallah, maybe
Alhamdulillah.
we'll invite you later on back and see your progress, and we also invite other students as well. So one thing I want to finish with Imam Ghazali's saying. I think either he said or I read in his book, which is very profound. He says, as human beings, he says, if you want just after dunya, you will lose both your dunya and deen.
Mm,
However, if you go after deen, right, and do it proper way, not just like extreme way, but in a proper way, to put things in the right place, you will get both. And
mm,
that thing I've seen it, like a lot of people may right now where I come from, right? I have this old thing is like propaganda of, oh, deen is like backwards and all this stuff. But reality is like if you put things in the proper place, that's the meaning of adab means, like in putting things in the proper place where your deen should be, where your dunya should be, and then doing things as you said with the right mind, you will not only get a peace of mind, peace of soul, peace of heart, but you will see the blessings that comes your way. It comes so much abundant that you will not be able to stop it. Like, because you know what I mean? You're experiencing it, right? Inshallah. Like, alhamdulillah. And I have seen it with my own eyes in my example, but other people's, like I'm seeing with you. Like the money you earn from this is such better, such sweet in a way that at the same time we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that it's everything. We also know it's a fitna, but also mention is that we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala keep us in that right path, not to be the money in our hands, not our hearts. But you see that, like what I'm saying is, people think that if you go, just let me go to dunya, like this one is gonna stall me. No, this actually amplifies you, right? So just try that as well. And I think with your work, you're doing that with Deenpreneurs. We're also helping, inshallah, Muslim entrepreneurs as well. May Allah give barakah in what you do. May Allah give barakah in what we do, and you know, increase all of us in barakah, increase on guidance. And thank you for your time, for sharing your story. And hopefully it will inspire maybe a lot of students, a lot of people who are on the fence. They want to study a business. They don't have to come to us. They can go anywhere. But most important part, don't be the one that stays with the idea. If there's idea, if it's good, believe it's what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and take action. As you said, he's a razak, but yet we have to claim it. We have to do our job as well.
Yeah, you know, and alhamdulillah, definitely, you know, take the plunge. Don't die with dreams stuck inside of you. You know,
don't die with dreams.
I think you know, but it also, you should be smart about it. Like you know, they say there's the 9 to 5 and then there's the 5 to 9, right? So I think that's the model that a lot of people can start with, where you keep your job and so on, but then you start working on this until you start to see it get some traction. You know, I did that to some extent, although I did sort of take a pretty big bet and sort of jump straight in. But yeah, alhamdulillah, you know, I think.
So tell us, for those who are listening, who are watching, tell us where they can find if those who want to listen, their kids, for themselves as well, where they can find more about you, your project. So inshallah.
Yeah, so our website and the company name is 5 Before College, so 5beforecollege.com. And you know, the best thing is to get onto our email list. There are a lot of ways to do that, you know, from the website and other places. Because that's where I really communicate with people. We host a lot of webinars and things like that. Find Your Qiblah, currently where we have our summer cohort going. So I hope to open enrollment again sometime in the fall. And we do have a college essay boot camp for the rising seniors to actually get their college applications done coming up in August. And you know, so there are a lot of things. I would love to you know, to have more people in the network, especially if you have high school age children or middle school children. You know, I think we're a budding community that you know, Hamzah, there's a lot of energy around this. So inshallah.
That sounds good. With that one, we're gonna conclude this thing. Thanks so much. Assalamu alaikum.
Jazakallah khair. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.